Alrighty. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Long, long Monday. That's what I'll
Y-
say.
Yeah, it was a busy day for me too. I got finally got um, a third truck, ready to go on the road. So just getting a
Mm.
couple things. Well, sorry, take that back. I got a third truck purchased. Just working out, getting it wrapped and getting it into the mechanic. Just doing oil change and stuff real quick. But next week I should have a third truck out on the road, so we'll get things moving. But yeah,
Is so you'll have obviously your main one, and then just one for each one of the crew. I mean, your main project manager, and then the crew leader, I should
yep,
say.
yep, yep. So we'll have
Are you
those
getting
going.
a new handyman? Not a handyman. Geez, I should say. What I
Lab
mean by that is a laborer. Yes.
Yeah, I've got ads out for that. So I'll check those actually when we get off here. But so far, a bunch of crap because that's usually what comes in for laborers. And then I got a couple of people I got to call tomorrow that are probably a little more skilled, which is fine. I'd rather have two skilled guys than one guy that's got to be babysat all day. So the guy who's skilled can't do anything.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it was a busy day because I was working on all that, and then tomorrow I got to do all the same stuff. Got to go get the thing registered and just a bunch of time wasting nonsense. But anyway, yeah, we wanted to this week. I think we're going to talk about um, tracking data points to track in the company. So
Yeah. It's really this. It's I know I always say track everything, and when I say that is as general as it sounds, track everything. Um,
real quick,
I know
sorry.
I personally have multiple different operations within my company, and each one of them results in different things I track. But if if it is an action that we do, it's probably tracked in one shape or form.
Yeah. Quick question: am I frozen on your screen?
Yeah, you're always typically frozen though.
Huh. All right. Well, I guess we'll see. I might be videoless this time, but anyway, yeah, yeah. That's there is. I mean, you can get pretty ridiculous on things that are tracked, and honestly, you should, because the more you track, the more you are able to, the more you learn, the more you can adjust, and the more you can, the more profit you can plan for. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because again, we talked about that before. It's the biggest. It's the only reason you're in business is to make money. And if you're not making money, or if you don't know you're making money or not making money, how are you supposed to keep going? Which is exactly what I used to do. When I first started, was I had no way of tracking anything, so I had no idea what was going on, what was being made, what wasn't, and where my mistakes were. So some of the things, the reason that we started or wanted to talk about this, or the reason I did it at least, was when we were at the home show, right? Every single time someone came to talk to me, I probably had 100 different thoughts on things that I could track just there on the people that I talked to, so that I had a better idea of who my target audience is, right?
Hmm.
So, like, things that I was thinking about was you could track, rough age of who I'm talking to. I could track how many people each day, which I should have done already, how many people did I actually stop and have a conversation with, which I did not track at all, and I should have, right? I have an idea, but it's not. I should have had some sort of way of figuring out exactly how many people I talk to every day. Their age, their sex, what their. I had a million ideas, okay? But like that's what I'm saying is if you can get as much data as possible, then I have a better idea of who I should be putting ads out in front of when I do marketing, right? And who has and then from there I go, okay, well, I talked to this many people, this many of them were male, this many were female, their ages were this to this, and then how many of those people actually purchased, right? So I can get even more detailed, which is something that I think, like Facebook, when you're doing ads on Facebook, they track that stuff for you, but they don't track who's converting, right? They just track who it's getting in front of and who's clicking on it, right?
So, ironically enough, and this is where a lot of people don't understand Facebook to a high degree. There's two ways you can actually bring that information back. One is the API conversions, which is with the pixel. And then the second one is within the actual Facebook CRM. Inside the business manager, you can mark the leads as converted, and then that helps Facebook understand who your ideal target is. So that's two ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. So API conversions, that's just people who made it to your website or something, right? That's not the people who actually bought something.
So what I would do would I would set up different API conversion events. So I would have one to be view page. I'd have one to be view to purchase product. I'd have one to then have books a schedule one,
Schedule
and
appointment.
then
Yep.
one just for a lead form. So I could pick which one I want to send back. I send back all of them to Facebook to
Mm-hmm.
hone in on my targeting, but I can then pick out of my new ad that I set up to retarget out of that conversion. Hey, I want to only target the people who scheduled on my calendar.
Yep. Yep. And you know, this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about last week, where we were, cross selling and upselling and all that. Because now you've got all those people's information, and you can sell them a different or try to sell them a different product, and stay in front of them with your marketing campaigns. With not just on Facebook, but you can send them your newsletters on your email. You can send them texts, and you know what I mean. All and then again the data that you get back from that, how many of the follow-up emails were clicked on and blah blah blah. It can get pretty ridiculous, and that's why it's
Oh
like crucial
yes.
to track those things, which again I have done zero of for my leads and clients. Again, what I've been selling in the past is a pretty high-end custom product. So you and I had a conversation before we started here that it's a different lead that I'm looking for. It's not, it's there's a lot of pre-qualification that goes into it, because there's a lot of time that could potentially be wasted, um, on the stuff that I'm doing,
Hmm.
or sorry, that I did in the past. Now that I'm working on a different, product and service, it's different. I should be tracking every single one of those things, and that's what we're working towards setting up now. That way, I have the best possible chance of either selling to those that showed an interest or having those recommend me to somebody because I'm constantly in their face and they don't forget about me. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd see honestly four ways for yourself. One, that referral method is, hey, I'm already gonna be in front of the people who I've been in front of.
hmm
Two, more or less, you're going to advertise to the mass. And this is where most people, where you just get a whole influx and then you put a salesman to do the qualification, and you're really only looking for about 1 to 3% to convert in that high ticket sale because of what you are in. It's hard to find that $300,000 - $400,000 down payment to
exactly.
get going. And yeah, that's not purchase price, guys. That's down payment. Um, so that's what the second way. Third way is you go so high ticket advertisement on Facebook, it costs you $1,000, $2,000 for a lead, and you spend 10,000 to 15,000 to get a customer in the door, which usually is the way to go when you have the capital to invest at the mass scale.
Yeah.
Um, and luckily for you, you have obviously the pergola route where you have the interim product to where you can build up a referral base off a luxury product and cross referral into your sales. So that's the four ways I see for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and again, that's all based on, or it goes hand in hand with the tracking of the data that we were talking about at the beginning.
Hmm.
Which is only part of the stuff that you should be tracking in your company. There's a million things that you should be tracking, and again, you should try and get as detailed as you possibly can. And for example, for me, I'm building custom homes, right? So obviously, as a contractor, I'm tracking all my expenses for each job, right? That's a standard thing that every contractor should be doing if they're working on multiple projects. It doesn't matter if you sold a job cost plus or if you sold a job with a contracted price, set price. You should be tracking everything, and I mean everything. So if you bought a box of screws, um, so like what I have my guys do, for instance, is when we go to Lowe's, right? Say we're working on 4 projects. My guys going to Lowe's to pick up nails for this project, screws for this project, caulk for that project. He checks out 3 different times, and we have 3 separate receipts, each with their job name on them for that reason, so that I can be very meticulous to the penny on what it costs me to do a certain job. So not only that, but we track the amount of time that my project manager is spending on each job, right? Because he's an overhead cost. He's not job specific. I'm not billing him out per the job, right? But I know at the end of a job, okay, it took you, you know, 80 hours total is what you spent running materials, talking to subs, whatever. That's how long it took you on this job. So now I know roughly, what you're costing per job so I can add that into my, percentage when
Hmm.
I'm, selling a job. Um, we're tracking miles, we're tracking gas, how much is it taken for each, every single thing gets tracked cost wise, right? But there's plenty of other things that we track as far as materials go, right? So um, when we're doing like the pergolas are a good example. When we're doing those, we know it takes 256 screws exactly. Okay, so we know what we need to order. If we order, um, you know, 500 screws, that gets us through 2 pergolas, right? And so we order them and we have them set out, and we can get our pieces together so that the next job goes that much quicker because we're not just fumbling a bunch of screws. We send out exactly what we need and we get them done. You know what I mean? And it
Hmm.
goes like that for the houses too. When we're building a model, we do a framing package, and then okay, we needed 12 extra 2x4s. Well, guess what? We're going to add that to the order for the next time we build that same house to keep us from having to delay the project for going to get more lumber. You know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
again, it may not delay the project, but what happens is the project manager says, all right, in order to not delay this, I'm going to run to Lowe's and pick those 12 up. So there he spends 3 hours in a day going out to Lowe's, picking up the lumber, loading it, going over to the project, unloading it, and then going back to the next project that he was supposed to have been at. So that's why we track those things. I track exactly what amount of material goes into a project, what they cost, the amount of hours that my guys spend on a job, like when my employees are doing installations, and for each item that they're doing. So if, it took them 68 man hours to frame, okay, I've got that one taken care of. So I know if we're building a similar sized house about what it's going to take. And same thing, if they're doing this long on flooring and this much on tile, I know what to expect on the next project. Again, something I didn't do in the past.
So, if you don't mind me asking, just for the construction individuals out there, at one point, because me being naive, yes, I have been in construction, guys. I do know a little bit here. I would not do this nowadays, but in the beginning, I would probably think doing just a price for the whole square footage
Mm-hmm.
and not doing a price per the trade, which is a completely different way of looking at it, but the correct way to look at it.
It, uh, was that a question or was that just a
So I
statement?
mean, the real thing is, did you ever look at it as a square footage ordeal from the beginning, or were you always, I guess, knowledgeable from the beginning in the sense of, hey, I'm gonna bill you out per trade
Yeah.
vice?
Okay. So it's evolved, right? So the most common question I get when I talk to a prospective client is what does it cost to build per square foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being that I don't have a ready selected, 5 or 6 models yet, um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because every home I build is custom. Okay. So what I mean by that is my house is a good example. I only have a couple of upgrades, like my shower, right? Unnecessary shower, but it's something that I wanted. And then I did quartz countertops instead of granite. So that's a little bit more. Everything else is, pretty much as standard as it gets. I did a standard drywall finish. I painted the whole house one freaking color, inside and outside. I did same floor throughout. There's no changes,
Hmm.
right? So, and the same trim throughout. There's no changes. There's no crown. So, like, basically, what I'm trying to say is you can build a custom home like mine, but keep the finishes simple, which keep the cost per square foot generally pretty small, right? Or not pretty
Yeah.
small, but reasonable. Okay.
Yes.
And then, and it's a decent sized house, 2,600 square feet under air. So you take that same, like across the street from me, I'm building an 1,800 square foot house under air. Okay. But the finishes are all over the place, right? We're changing flooring almost every room. We're changing paint colors all over the place. We have
No way.
we have multiple different piece moldings going up. We've got different door styles. We've got different windows everywhere. So all of those things add up, right? So now
Mhm.
where it may cost, we're just going to use round numbers here. These are not accurate numbers, guys. Do not call up your builder and tell them that this is what some guy said it cost, okay? I'm just using numbers as an example here. But where
This guy on YouTube said,
yeah, where my say a 2,600 square foot house costs $100 a square foot raw cost to
okay.
build it because I kept the finishes simple, right?
Hmm.
We're now so what's that? 260,000, right? Is that right? Did I do that right? Do that math right?
Okay.
260,000. Um,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's $100 a square foot. You take that, and then you do this 1,800 square foot house, which because of all those finishes now costs $250 a square foot, right? So it costs more to build a smaller house because they don't know, because the finishes are crazy, the labor costs more, the material costs more, and
Well,
it takes
those
longer to build.
roofs,
Yeah, well,
those
you saw that.
roofs,
Yeah,
literally, it
that's it.
looks like they're up north.
Yeah,
It's so strange and outputting compared to everything
yeah,
else down
it's
here.
don't get me wrong, it's going to be a beautiful house when it's done, but all of those little things add up and people don't understand that. So when they ask me for a per square foot price, I laugh at them. I say, "Listen, it could range from $100 a square foot all the way up to $1,000 a square foot. It completely depends on you and what you want. So you tell me your budget and then I tell you, okay, this is what you can afford. Okay, you can go nicer here and less nice here and save some money, blah, 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 right? But again, so to get back to what your original question was, which was do you price out per square foot or per sub?
Hmm.
I do per line item and then I mark that up. Or again, mostly what I do now is cost plus. So I just tell them, hey, roughly this is what it should cost. And then we're just going to do cost plus. So as soon as I get a bill, I send it to you and we move on. You get what you want and I make sure I don't lose money. It's pretty simple. And you make sure that it's done correctly. You know what I mean? Um,
Oh,
but
no, it's pretty simple.
yep. But so like something like the pergolas though, that'll be different because there's not a lot of variables there. You know what I mean? You get they do have a lot of options, but the options are easy to price out. So essentially, you get a 12 by 12 pergola for this amount. If you want this added on, it's this much. This added on, it's this much. You know what I mean? And we
Hmm.
go we go like that. So I have set amounts for those and set sizes for those. Again, because I have tracked what it costs and what it takes to put them up, so I know now this is what it costs me to do it and make the money that we need to make to operate efficiently. Um, so, yeah, that's those you can price per square foot essentially. When somebody asks me, "What does it cost per square foot?" I can give you a number just like that. Um, but I can't do it for the houses right now because I don't have my models finished up. Once I have a model and I have sent that out to everybody, the variables don't change. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I can give you a price per square foot on that easy.
What will you do?
It
You just up? Will you'll just update the entire house each month, or will you just do that quarterly in the sense of?
Quarterly usually. Yep. So usually there's like when I do something like that, there'll be a 3%, bump that I add to it to cover any increases. And then yeah, once a quarter we'll go in and we'll say, okay, it's gone up by this percentage, so we'll add that onto it. Or because right now nothing's ever going to come down, it seems like. So I would say, or it
Yeah.
came down this much, so we adjust those prices. But that's just probably not the case. Everything's just going up. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly how that is. And again, because I'm tracking every detail on every single freaking house. I mean, it gets pretty ridiculous. I've got spreadsheets and then software that I use to show every single thing simply because the next time I go to build, I know what it costs to do that so I can adjust my prices accordingly, which is what I've done over the past 7 freaking years. I figured out each time, oh, that took longer than I thought it was going to take, but I didn't track it. Now I have a very detailed sheet that says, okay, this is going to take this amount of hours. Boom. I know what I have to charge now to make sure that I'm not losing my ass on this job. So, but it's all because I tracked it. If you don't track it, you don't know. And there's no way to adjust and make sure that you're not putting your business into the hole. So, those are, it's pretty, it can get pretty ridiculous on my end because of all the different moving parts I have on every project and blah, blah, blah. And I'm curious to see what it sounds like for you. Like, what are you tracking to ensure that you're, staying profitable, versus just, what you're tracking for your marketing clients?
Okay, yeah. So, and let me ask you this: Are you wanting to know more or less what I teach in the sense of an agent, just an independent salesman, or are you just talking about what I'm tracking on an organization level to make sure the entirety is profitable?
Uh, B.
Okay, so what I tend to track very heavily is because I'm the marketer, I am tracking total leads in, total cost of leads, and then obviously the total, like the average of lead per cost, right? Um, that's the top level. And then with that, I am measuring against um, pickup rates, the amount dialed to get a pickup rate, hours dialed. I have all of those metrics to be able to find out a math equation to get my guys going in the sense of if you have low pickup rates, it's the leads if you're not dialing enough. And the amount of dials tells me if you dial 100 dials and you're not talking to anyone during that hour, you have bad leads or the connection rates are bad. And then vice versa, if you're dialing 5 hours, I'm going to be able to get a better picture of those two top numbers, if that makes
Yep,
sense.
yep,
From there, I can then take the appointments per hour or sales per hour, meaning one call closes. Very rare, but it does happen. Um, Appointments per hour, and then from the appointments, I track show ratios. Show ratios. From there, close ratios, placement, persistency, and then overall conversion after you account for so after everything from a lead coming in, you account for the pickup rate, you account for the amount of times dialed to actually get an appointment, how many hours that actually takes to get an appointment on the hook, how many appointments it actually takes for one to show, and then out of the showed appointments, how much it takes to actually convert one into a sale, and then the placement ratio out of converted sales to actually qualified afterwards, and then how many actually stays on the book after a 30-day, a 90-day, a 120, and then it goes into semi and then annual. And then obviously bring it back a little bit from the persistency placement rating. Conversion overall is my big metric. So typically, I know if I'm converting 5 to 7% of my leads, I am typically on around a 3 to 4x profit margin on my lead spend.
yep. So, by the way, everybody that's watching, you could see that he was
Lost.
very clearly reading something because he has a detailed breakdown of this so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he
yeah. No, no, no. And
knows.
that's the thing is, I told him I was gonna get a sheet up because if like these are the things that I think of, and this is just me. I like to ensure that um, what I teach has a good purpose. You know what I mean? Like it's not just going everywhere, and I'm just not spouting numbers because the last thing I cannot stand is someone just to talk. And then when
Yeah.
it comes to actually having to do and to duplicate, they're like, yeah, by the way, figure it out.
Yep. So
Um, can't do it.
and it's really great because now you like the way you do that, and the way that I'm going to get to do that for the for the new stuff that I'm working on, but is essentially now you know how many leads you need to close one, right? To get average one close. So you know if you want to get a certain if you set a goal, I want this many, sales this week, I need this many leads, and you know how much each one of those leads cost you, so you know how much money you need to have set aside for marketing, you know, and like all of those things. So now you can literally plan exactly, I need to spend this much to make this much. And, this goal for this quarter is this much. So I need to spend this much more. You know what I mean? And that's it. It's pretty simple once you have all the data. Now, how long does it take you to get those averages? Because you're not doing this for a week and saying, all right, I closed 2 calls this week. You know what I mean? How long
No.
does it take for you to really hone in? What is a good amount of time to track this stuff before you start to implement anything?
So what I always like to say when I'm running a new system, in the sense of I'm on a new lead type, or I'm you know experimenting. For myself, I tend to run around 30 appointments of the
Mm-hmm.
leads. So that's typically about 100 leads coming in the door. So about 100 batch size to say, hey, this is actually worth listening to the data. Because what I can't stand is when someone gets 2 leads and they're like, these aren't qualified.
Right.
Yeah, that's Facebook. You,
Yeah.
you just got to let Facebook do its thing for the first 10, 15. Guess what? These platforms love money. You're going to have to spend money to make money. Unfortunately, you got to spend money to get data.
Yeah.
So, unless if you've got your client lists that you can upload into the systems, you're paying for the data.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I'd say a batch size of 100 leads is always a good batch to
To start with.
actually get good data off of. Yeah.
So yeah, that was going to be my question is what would be your advice for somebody, any business owner that's looking to start advertising and tracking how to, hone in on those things. What would be your advice? How much I can't even say how much should they spend, but what should be the amount of time that they are looking for leads? How many leads should they use as their average, right? So you said 30. You think so whatever it takes to get 30 appointments set, right? And again, I mean that's for your what do you call it? Your industry. So it may be a
I,
little different.
I so I think that for any sales industry, and I'm saying that maybe not for your high ticket sales, but even for like your pergolas, I
Yeah.
think that's an amazing amount to where you get 30 booked appointments. You
Yep.
get to see one of two things. One, if people show up, you get to test your presentation. Okay.
Right.
Now you can always see if you get 20 to show and only 2 buy, you got a presentation, maybe you got a sales issue. Like not you do, you have an issue. But if you only have 10 people show up out of 30, then we may have a systems and maybe a system and a booking issue, to where can we really judge off 100 leads if only 10 shows up? I don't know if that person is qualified, because this is a big thing too. Are they qualified to test the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can throw someone 100 leads, but if they've never dialed leads, am I going to trust that data?
Yeah.
So that's also another huge thing to be thinking about. So I always have a different expectation for when a brand new individual gets on, and compared to someone who is more or less veteran in the field.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. I think like you said, if you can get it to where you have 30 scheduled appointments, right? And you take the you track those meticulously. Every data point that you can possibly come up with, you track. And then you take the information that you got from those 30 appointments, what your close rate was, what your pickup rate was, whatever, all that
Report
stuff.
everything, by the
Yeah,
way.
exactly. Once you get that figured out, then you adjust your spending and your campaign to target better, and you realign, you go again, and then you just keep tweaking it over time, but until you get to the point where you can say, okay, it cost me this much to get this many leads and close this many sales and make this much money. So if I want to make this much money, it's just a freaking algebra formula. You plug in the numbers and you have your answer, all because you tracked everything. So, and again, that's the same thing that I haven't done that with my clients really, but I've done that with the project. So I know from too much failed tracking that, finally this is what it costs to do what I need to do and make the money I need to make.
Well, there's two sides of the house, and that's where most people um, like it's not correlated enough to where you have the back end, the operations, to where that's where really you are tracking it. That's where I'm tracking the internal systems in the sense of, hey, here's the dialer. Now I'm tracking all of these metrics for an entire team. And then the CRM, hey, I've got a ton of text going out. Now I'm testing, hey, out of 300 accounts, I've sent out 1,000 texts with this saying I've only had a 7% respond rate. Can I get that up to a 14? Like you're doing different um, different reports, different metrics, but you're still doing the same concept of anything and everything that can be measured needs to be measured.
Yep.
And I can't stress that enough, and I'm just going to repeat it over and over because I think so many people just think about reporting sales over
Mm-hmm.
and over and over again, and people forget to report on the follow up. And honestly, the follow up is where, for the newer individual who cannot close, because selling and closing are two different skill sets. I hate to tell people that. Um, if you are not a strong closer, your money's in the follow up. And if you're not tracking your follow up, then you're dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you need to track everything.
Yeah, and again, that's something that I'm just recently understanding. As far like I knew from a couple years ago, it's important to track job costs, right? So I've been doing that for a consistent amount of time, and I finally have real data that I can apply to future projects, right? And I have a good structure in place moving forward. But I'm just now, after the past, I'd say month or so, realizing, Jesus, I am missing out on so much money because I'm not tracking these certain things, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
tracking what things cost me on a job that I've already sold. I'm not, I haven't tracked anything on how it took me to get that, how to sell that job, right? So I'm
Oh,
missing out on
so
so many things.
oh geez, so do you know what your CAC is?
I don't even know what that means.
Cost to acquire a customer.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. I've done zero advertising, so it's all word of mouth. So,
No, you're fine then. So
yeah,
you've got a pretty good ROI
right.
on your return there. But it's interesting because in your business, you're trying to expand. So it's
Yep.
really going to be, and obviously, you got to track it, and that's why you are tracking it and getting into it. That's going to be something that is huge to where is your CAC worth, like if your CAC's $100 and you're spending $400, is it worth
Yeah.
getting it?
Yeah,
Well, sorry, you were saying?
technically, I do have that at the moment. Even though I'm not advertising, I still do go out and visit these clients and spend time doing estimates, right? So I am spending money to acquire a customer, even though it's not through advertising, right? So that's again something I should still be tracking, so that I know, okay, I went and talked to six people and only one of them, um, you know, what do you call it, converted. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so how much did I spend and wasted time doing all that to get one, right? Then I know, Okay, I have to go on this many appointments to get this many sales. But something I haven't been doing, even though I'm not advertising. It's just word of mouth. So
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is um, w- your CAC can be ungoshly proportionate compared to mine. Like I don't want to be paying $1,000 to get a client in the door. You can afford to be paying $1,000 to get a client in the door because of your LTV.
exactly. Yep. Yeah, and absolutely. But again, I haven't been advertising, something that I'm changing. But yeah. Anyway, we've been going for what 35 minutes. I think we
No,
can
we're good. Yeah, we
yeah
can cut it.
we can shut her down and we'll have to brainstorm a topic for next week. But it's no big deal. So anything else you want to add before we get out?
No, that was a good one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So all right, sounds good. Then I will see you next week. Thank you guys for coming out. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.